Welcome to the Mindset Matters, the podcast where psychiatry, medicine, and real human experiences collide, all through the eyes of two psychiatric PAs.
We're your hosts, PA Mercedes Dodge and PA Jessica Spissinger, two passionate psych PAs on a mission to bridge the gap in mental health care.
So whether you're a provider just here to level up your psychiatric insight, increase your mental health skills, you're in the right place.
Each episode, we shine a light on the incredible work PAs are doing in psychiatry and beyond. Our goal is to build a community focused on better patient care, professional growth, and personal well-being.
This podcast, a little disclaimer, is for educational purposes only. We're not here offering medical advice, psychiatric advice. If you or someone you know needs support, please reach out to a licensed mental health professional. All right, guys, let's dive in.
All right, so we're excited today to have Dr. Sherlonda Adkins with us on the show. I am just so excited to hear more about your career. You've done telepsychiatry, you've done life strategy coaching. Can you bring us back to being that new PA? Like, what originally pulled you into working in psychiatry?
Wow, I have to travel back in time. It's over a decade now. I'll back up and say when I was in PA school, I created a list and I didn't tell anybody about this list. It was like what I want to do and what I don't want to do. On that list, I wanted to work part-time hours with full-time pay because I already had 3 kids. I was married with 3 kids at that point. I also wanted to work close to home. I did not want to work weekends, did not want to work nights. And I wanted to work in a field where I would actually get to know my patients. As I started going through my clinical rotations, the first rotation when I was family medicine, absolutely loved it. Thought that was what I was going to do, was even offered to come back because they were going to be looking at our PA. But then 4th rotation, it was my behavioral health rotation. And within a week, I was like, oh, this feels so natural. Like I've literally been doing this since I was on the playground, helping people work through life's problems, challenges, and just giving them a safe space. And so I asked my supervising physician, would you be willing to have a PA join your practice? Because at that time, he was the only medical provider. He had therapists, but he was the only medical provider. And on walk-in days, sometimes he would have people waiting for 2 and 3 hours. And I'm not kidding. Like they would actually bring work, knitting material, and they would sit there and wait. So he said, Sherlonda, I've never had a PA interested in joining my practice. And if you would like to, that's the quick story of how I ended up working in psych.
Interesting that you mentioned you advocated for yourself and you knew what you wanted. Sometimes in the PA career, you're trying to still figure it out. So I love your listing that allowed you to really hone in and do an attack plan. I also want to highlight how your supervisor never worked with a PA. I think a lot of new PAs don't realize they have to create their own job. They have to create their space in whatever workforce. Can you tell us a little bit more how you gained so much mentorship power and knowledge? Tell me about how that connects with your childhood upbringing.
My mom only had 2 biological children, myself, and I have an older brother. And so I spent a lot of time. My mom was a single mom for a large majority of my childhood. I was glued to her hip. And she was always, and still is, a support to her friends, whether it was colleagues, people at church, or neighbors. I watched her do support. I watched her do friendships. It became natural to me. Interestingly, I did not realize that there's skills and then there's gifting. Growing up in church, watching people in church, and there were people who could sing, they could sing the heavens open. There were people who could do praise dance ministry. There were preachers, there were teachers. And I remember telling my husband, know what my gift is? I don't have a gift. Maybe my gift is I do a little bit of everything, but not really anything that stands out. And he was like, are you serious? You don't see your gift. You don't see that when people need advice, they're calling you. When people are at crossroads, they do, and they're calling you. And when you finish talking to them, they're like, "Oh, so much better." And they go on and do great things. And I was like, that's a gift. So it's interesting. And I always tell people that sometimes the very thing that you do, and you do it seamlessly and you do it so well, that's usually going to probably your gift set. But you know what, my mom, so part of it was watching and probably just modeling her support. And also what was woven into my DNA with psychiatry when I was sitting there in my rotation early on, like I said, wow, I just need to get the science behind it and know what to do and make sure I'm not killing anybody with medication combinations. But really, as far as being able to connect with people and listen and hear what they're not saying and being able to formulate questions off script come at the moment as they're speaking.
One of the quotes you shared, I just love so much that you said you've been doing this since you've been on the playground. And I just picture that like Charlie Brown, Lucy, psychiatric help tin for 5 cents. Can you bring us back to that playground? Playgrounds can be a brutal space for a kid. Where were
Sure.
you doing that? Yeah.
So, for example, I can remember a group of friends, maybe 3 or 4 of us, and we play on the monkey bars and we sing and all that kind of stuff. And then just seeing somebody by themselves sitting there picking at the grass or the little clovers and looking sad, and me going over saying, "Hey, you want to play with us?" And they're like, "I don't know. It's okay. It'll be fun. You could be our friend. You're my friend." And they'll like you, like that sort of thing. And just always being paying attention and seeing if somebody looked like they maybe didn't belong or were in some type of distress. Like even now, I'll go in the store, minding my own business. And if I see someone who's just looking at them like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Hey, your dress is so pretty," or "Hey, how are you doing today?" That kind of thing. Trust me, there are a lot of things that I don't see that I'm oblivious to, but it's like they're either feeling something. I can usually identify that, and I don't always get involved in the other part of that. My spirituality is very big in what I do. Not everything is meant for me to get involved in, and learned over the years, and that's wisdom and applying when I get involved in what my involvement looks like. So, yeah, as a child, can't tell you all the examples, but I was usually a leader as well. So I made really good grades. I was always at the top of the list. I remember in 5th grade, they have the end of the year promotion ceremonies. I tell my dad, if you're going to be taking pictures for her, just sit here. So I had a stack of awards, most likely to succeed, best all around, highest grade in science, highest grade in math. And I was so happy. And every time I get my award, I come back and sit down, not showing my friends. Gradually, my friends weren't as excited as they were in the beginning. And by the end, I was so happy with my stack and they walked away. I remember just feeling so confused. What just happened? And why do I feel excluded? I think I cried. And my mom said, "Don't worry, they're just jealous." But in 5th grade, you don't understand what jealousy is all about. That was a pivotal moment, and I talk about it often because when I went into middle school, I started to downplay. It was no big deal. No big deal if I got into whatever fanny club, or no big deal if I got the highest grade. We're not going to talk about that. And that carried over into adulthood. So it was more recent, probably like more so in the last 5 years or so, that I was just like, you know what? I'm not gonna dim light. I've been very blessed. My children are extremely blessed. And what I found is there are more people who are inspired by that, the people who are offended. If they're
Mhm.
offended, if you can't take the shine, if it's too bright, put some sunglasses on. I say all that to say that experiences we go through in childhood really can carry over. And I guess that's why I'm so sensitive to other people and letting them see the lens through which they're seeing the world may not necessarily be the inaccurate lens. So I just love walking people through that. As you can probably hear, I do a lot of coaching with patients. I think in all areas of medicine, unless you're doing surgery, you're not going to be coaching somebody who's asleep. But I think in all areas of medicine, we get the opportunity. We're blessed with the opportunity to be able to just drop a little seed into somebody's life. I think psych is very precious because oftentimes when people come in to see us, there's a lot going on. And everybody's not gonna go and see a therapist, even though we recommend it all the time. So you might have that one piece, that one nugget that keeps somebody going until they can get help elsewhere.
I think that you come with this innate natural sixth sense of social connection because of your upbringing with your mother and the strong community. It sounds like you have gone through periods in your life and realized, how can I shine, but also be true to myself? What is one of the best advice to build on the medical knowledge? So, what is your biggest advice for the new PAs?
Yes, I would say just continue to learn. There's no way you're going to know everything. Learning is going to conferences, listen to podcasts like this one. I love learning from people. Teach me how to do it, show me how to do it, sitting with and talking to people, observing those who have the skill set and knowledge and watching how they do things and getting multiple perspectives. So not just one person, seeing how different people do things. Of course, reading journals, just
Mhm.
know that you have to keep learning. So when you graduate, that's not you still have to learn. So figure out what your main source is going to be. If you're spending a lot of time in the car commuting, audiobooks and podcasts are great for that. If you're someone who says, I can't do multiple things at once, I'm gonna need to sit and read, go ahead and have an article on your desk. If you have a break, that's over and read, but just figure out a way to keep learning.
Love that. And one thing that stands out to me is you juggle a lot of different things. You're a psych PA, you're also a designated coach and a speaker. I understand some of the process, of course, with being a psych PA, but tell me more about how you evolved into the coaching specifically and what that looks like, as well as the speaking.
All right. That kind of goes back a couple of decades. Even before I knew what a PA was, I was involved in speaking. My very first job out of college was with State Farm. I secured an internship with them. And it was funny, just real quick on this. So I'm in college and I need a job. So I go to the job board and I saw the State Farm were looking for an intern. And it was actually a paid internship. And at the time, it was, I think it was maybe like $12 an hour, which was a lot back then. I applied and I remember we had to take this test. And so fast forward, I get a call and they offered me the internship. I remember talking to my boss and he said, "Are you sure you want this? Because you just seem very nonchalant about it." All the students that were chosen, they were like, "No, it wasn't all. It was one. You were the one that was chosen." I was like, "Oh, yes." So anyway, I worked as an intern and when I graduated, they extended an offer to me. And I quickly realized that being a claim rep was not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I started asking. I got really interested in I saw that there were some people who would go out and speak at career fairs. They would go to the high schools and talk about the importance of having insurance and blah, blah, blah. And I said, "Hey, how do they get to do that?" And they were like, "Oh, they're part of the Speakers Bureau." "How do you become part of the Speakers Bureau?" "You have to have spoken, blah, blah, blah." I didn't have that. I said, "Can I just start?" So I started going out with other people and they would let me speak. Every area that I worked in, even when I was a real estate agent, I ended up getting a job. I was sitting in class learning how to use the MLS and I was helping another student. The teacher comes to me afterwards and say, "Hey, you're good with computers. We're looking for an instructor. It looks like you knew what you were doing." Now I'm up in front teaching other realtors. The teaching and speaking has been there in every single profession. I was even a motivational speaker for Monster.com in one of my interim periods. When I was younger, I used to line my stuffed animals up on the bed and I would just be talking to them, moving my hands. I don't know what I was saying, but I remember just talking. They always said when I was little that I would talk to a rock. Before I went to school, I would go to the lady next door. She was an elderly lady. I'd go and just sit there and talk to her. So again, that was something that's just been a part of my life. I started wanting to package a little bit more succinctly my message because there's so many things we can speak on. My husband and I, we've done marriage classes, we've done all kind of classes, and I wanted to bring all of me into it. What I'm doing in medical, what I'm doing spiritually, what we're doing is raising kids, marriage, all of that. And how can I just have this one story, this one theme? I couldn't figure it out. So I decided to hire a speaker coach. And so I went on to find a speaker coach. And in 2022, I enrolled. That's my first time like paying that much money to be a part of
Nice.
something, but it was a game changer. And that's where my brand started to emerge, getting unstuck and creating a life more professionally starting in 2022. But yeah, I enlisted the help of others.
Yeah, it sounds like you're so busy and take up the challenge to see what skill set you can build on. You have so many layers in your personal and professional resume. How do you keep recharged? Because sometimes we need to take a pause and review our why. Like, why am I doing? Is this really important to keep going on this path? So, how do you recharge and focus on your why?
For me, first of all, I'm not nearly as busy as most people think I am. I intentionally have white space built into my calendar. I have days during the week I don't see patients. I don't see a lot of patients now because I gravitated more towards doing the coaching. I don't say coaching, but strategy sessions. I'm a strategist, so
Mm.
I help people figure out what they want to do in life. For me, flexibility and freedom are like currencies. I value that even more than green dollars. Because you can have all the green dollars in the world, but if you don't have flexibility and freedom, you're still stuck in prison. I'm driven by this internal compass of what I need to be doing now that gives me freedom and flexibility. And what I'm doing now is probably not what I'm going to be doing in the same configuration next year. What I'm doing now is not what I was doing in the same configuration last year. So this time last year, I was still working in the Caribbean. I'm also licensed in the US Virgin Islands. I'll say go back 2 years, I was doing that. And then I was also doing some contract work and a practice in the upstate, about 3.5 hours away. I would commute there. And because I have family up there too. And it was fun. Like people say, "Oh my God, I can't believe you do it." I'm like, trust me, I love this. If it didn't work for me, I wouldn't do it. And then when that got to be, there's a shift. And I feel like it's a lot now. My husband always says, you always have your hands on the levers. Like you get to crank it up as much as you want to. and you get to dial it down. I'm very blessed and privileged to have a very supportive husband. As y'all probably can tell, I have done a lot of different things. And after 2 years, I might be like, I want to do this again. He's never once said, girl, would you make your mind up? He encourages it. He supports it. I realized that if that was the case, I would have to just stay in one lane and just travel there as long as I need to. So I make sure that I have white space in my calendar so that I have time to do the things I love. Like, it's not a problem for me to do this podcast. There's no one checking for me. I can block that off on the time. When I leave here, I'm going to get my hair done. Yesterday was my pedi and nail day. Our children now are all adults, and they're going to be spread out across the nation. One that's in New York, New Jersey area, one that's going to be in Houston, one that's in Dallas now. So it's important for me to have the flexibility to go to them if needed. I'll be in Dallas in a couple of weeks because my daughter's going to Antigua with her friends, and Luca needs a dog sitter. So I'm going to take care of my grandpa and stay in her high-rise apartment and just have a little retreat. The work that I do, I make sure that I can do it remotely so that I can be wherever I need to be or where I want to be. To answer your question, how do I make sure that I have downtime and how I recharge? I make sure to leave space, and then I'm not afraid to walk away when things just no longer fits. And I think we've all been there. There are things, and it doesn't mean that things are bad. You can walk away from a good thing. For me, it's not necessarily, is it all good? Is it a good thing? But also, is it a God thing? Is it where I'm feeling led to use my gifts in that particular season where I can utilize them and maximize where my gifts are? Every step I've taken, there's always been people almost like waiting to hear the message or waiting to be inspired. I mentioned in 2022, when I started with my coaching program, I didn't know any of those women. It was about 25 of us. The coach had a retreat for us in Florida. And it was my first time going to something like that with a bunch of women I didn't know. It can be scary because you know how we are. If you go with a friend, you always have your friend, but I didn't have anybody. But I went, and it was the most supportive environment because we were all there trying to do the same. And we're all friends now. That encouraged me to branch out even more. The group of women in the Caribbean, they were going to Greece, and I wanted to go. So since I had a good experience, I said, I'm going to try it again. So I went to Greece with a bunch of women, and I only knew one person, the organizer. I had never traveled internationally without my husband before. So I went. That was an amazing experience. The following year, I had an opportunity to go to Mauritius with my Nigerian sisters. I knew a couple of them, but didn't know the majority. It just keeps expanding. For me, meeting people, like this is exciting for me, being able to share my story, talking to other people, hearing their stories, and then also hearing where their golden threads are as well. Yeah, that's how I keep myself charged.
I love that so much. And talking about always having that white space on the calendar, that's fabulous. I'm really intrigued with all of the things you do. Is it the case where every week is different from the next week? Or do things fall into a flow? I'd like to hear a bit more. What is like a day in the life like for you?
Yeah, so there are some things that are set. I have some days where I see patients, so those are locked in. I have groups that I'm a part of, and we have locked in dates and church activities. But other than that, it's just leaving margin for whatever comes up.
So, with regard to coaching and speaking, those are opportunities that will present themselves to you. People will seek you out. How do those connections happen?
Yeah, pretty much word of mouth. The difference between what I'm able to do as a psych PA versus what I'm able to do as a strategist is I can work across the world. My latest client is from Kenya. I have a client in South Korea because it's not medicine. This is people saying at a crossroads in life, and I feel like I should be doing more. Can you help me? I don't do a lot of marketing for that. Initially, part of my coaching program, my speaker coaching, like I had to do it. That was part of the program. And I was like, out that stubborn one is, yes, I'm here for the coaching program, but this is how I want to do it. And she goes, okay, but this is how we're going to do it. And I need you to come on social media. I'm taking a break from social media right now. And she just looked at me. I guess I can get back going. And I remember she said, at the end of this, you're going to be offering this workshop, this free workshop. At the end of 5 months, I offered a free workshop. It was for PAs who wanted to get unstuck. There was somebody who attended the workshop who was part of another organization, the Women in Philanthropy organization. She reached out later and said, hey, we would like to have you come and speak at one of our monthly meetings. Guess who was in the monthly meeting? Rocky. After that meeting, Rocky messages me and says, hey, I'm going to be doing a conference. Would love to have you speak. So that was 3 years when I did this workshop. The point in that is also with planting seeds, like you just never know. I did not want to do it. I was resisting it all the way at the time. I wasn't as comfortable getting on social media in front of people and doing a live or a workshop, but she pushed me to do it and see what happened after that. I don't do as much marketing and promotion as I used to because I don't have to as much, when she made me do it. But it is something that's very important because otherwise no one would have known. So I encourage anyone who's wanting to grow their business, whether they have a telepsych practice, definitely market, use social media to help you market and get your name and your company's name out there for sure.
You are a powerful PA, but you also still encounter uncomfortableness. Just get out of your box. And so that reminds me a lot about when we deal with anxiety or imposter syndrome, not only as providers, but as patients as well. How do you manage that concept of it's okay to be uncomfortable when you're talking to patients with anxiety? Because you have experienced uncomfortableness and it has created pathways for you. And I think sometimes it's hard for patients to think, I can stay this uncomfortable, strong enough, I am resilient enough, or I'm going to build resilience. So, how do you manage that discussion with your patients?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I usually just try to figure out, where is it coming from? Like, what's the root of it? What is
Mhm.
it? Do you think that if you do it, that you're going to fail? Or do you think first of all, do you think you just can't do it? Like, you just don't have the skill set to do it? Or you can do it. Like, you've been equipped, you've been trained to do whatever it is that you're scared to do, or are you afraid that people are going to say something about you? And if it's that, well, what do you think they're going to say? And really just trying to identify where the fear comes from. Do you all use the feelings wheel, the emotions wheel at all with your patients?
You know, the colored one,
Have to build up their language of how to define their emotions. There's so many ways to
Yes.
describe it they don't realize.
I love the pillow version of it because you can also, I've had patients punch, because I talk about movement as well. You can move those emotions instead of just letting them sit. So the pillow, you can punch it without hurting yourself. You can throw it and you can scream at it. But also when you look at it and have people identify where they're feeling, it's also, okay, where do you want to feel? What's the opposite of what you want to feel? So we can also work through, where do you want to be and how do you get there? Never tell anybody you shouldn't be feeling nervous about this or you shouldn't have anxiety. But anxiety is not always a bad thing. Anxiety sometimes is like that's your push to prepare. If you have anxiety about a presentation, you shouldn't have anxiety about a presentation if you never practiced or you didn't prepare for it. So let that anxiety fuel you. Sometimes normalize it for a lot of patients gives them a lot of confidence, because then they say, oh, so there's nothing wrong with me. And I'm like, you probably think that you're the worst case scenario, because they'll say, I know you don't have any other patients. It's probably, I'm just a mess. And I'm like, you'd be surprised. Everybody that I see says that too. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah. So just normalizing those
Mhm.
emotions and helping them figure out where it's coming from and how to address it and see where they want to go. And then also, how will you feel on the other side of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you use a lot of open-ended questions and validations and helping them go down those journey path of self-discovery without telling them they shouldn't feel that way. I love the feeling wheel that you provided. So great that you go over the language that we need to talk about with like feelings, and like you can have more than one feeling, like you can be anxious and excited at the same time. And I think that sometimes in the world of mental health, you think, okay, I can only feel this way. This is my only problem. But in reality, there's problems can provide like opportunity. And so I think that mind shift takes a lot of coaching that you do not only with your patients, but also in your life. So I just think that's wonderful how you validate, normalize, and use open end questions for their own self discovery. No wonder you went into coaching.
Yeah, the thing is, I feel like I'm more of a coach than I am. I've only been a PA for 11 years, but a coach, I've been doing that since I was a child. I'll tell people I'm a strategist with the heart of a coach, with the mind of a scientist, which is the mind of a PA. So even when you think about, you can feel more than one thing at a time, we can be more than one thing at a time. When you think about Roman architecture, think of a platform being supported by different pillars. I feel like we're on that platform and there's different pillars of us. There's the mom pillar, there's the wife pillar, there's the social advocate pillar, there's all the different things that you are. And so what I love about that vision is, if one is taken away, your identity is not going to crumble because you still have other things that are supporting you, as opposed to if I just wrap my life up in being a PA, and who knows, maybe some weird license law change in South Carolina that says you can't be a PA anymore. Then what am I? Then I just crumble. I just think that as medical providers, the more that you're able to bring all of who you are into your patient care, the better provider you're going to be.
I love that so much. One of the things that you shared, we actually have in common. When I went to PA school, I also had 3 kids. Actually wound up with another 2 when I graduated. One of the things we were talking about, like, how do you recharge? Like, how do you regroup? You mentioned the white space on your calendar so you can be flexible and available for your kids. And mom to mom, we all know that we also need time to relax and recharge from our children as well. So just wondering a bit, and I know you're very involved with like PA moms. Like, I'd love to hear how you balance that element of your life as well.
The mom
And a
role.
parent. So our parenting journey has gotten a lot easier over the last several years because all of our kids are adults now. And even before they became adults, they were becoming more self-sufficient. I think about our vehicles. When we first got married, I had this I wanted this, I don't know if they're Chrysler Sebring. They had just came out with these Sebrings and I wanted the one that had the sunroof because it was just the two of us. Then I got pregnant and it was like, oh, putting the car seat in and out of this little 2-door thing is not going to work. So then we got an SUV. It was just a 5-seater SUV. So then we had kid 2, kid 3 came along and they're all like cramped in with all these booster seats and car seats. So we got a GMC Acadia so we could have that third row. And so we had this Acadia for a while. Oldest daughter, by this later on, she's driving. She had her own car. And then her son, he was in boarding school. So I was driving this big Acadia and it's just me and my daughter sitting in the car. And I'm like, why am I driving this big old bus? So then we brought it down. So I got another SUV, but it was a 5-seater. And then I had that. And then unfortunately somebody hit it and totaled it. And so I just got another car. And this, when I bought this car, I was like, I get to get whatever car I want. I don't have to think about how much living room it has in the back. Don't have to worry about if it has cargo space for the instruments and the book bags. Get to get the car that is not based on car seats. And that's when it's wow, you really realize the journey as a parent, how much of your life and the decisions that you make are built around your children. This is our blessing. This is what we wanted. We wanted to have these children. We're thankful that we had the health and strength to take care of them. But what I noticed with the different cars is that our needs started to change and it was slowly coming. We didn't just wake up and say, oh, the kids are adults, we're free, but it was gradual. Even just the fact when they got old enough to go to the kitchen on Saturday morning and get some frozen pancakes out and put them in the microwave. And we're like, we don't have to get up and fix breakfast. That's a win. That's a milestone. For the years, I've had time to play with hobbies and interests. I like to do stuff with my hands. I used to crochet. I don't crochet as much anymore, but I like dancing. So I have a studio right outside of my office. I have a dance studio. I've been able to carve out time. It's just looked different. My interests changed. I do reading as I'm part of a book club now. So I spend a lot of time with my book club sisters and traveling. How old are your children?
Oldest 17, youngest 11, 2 sets of twins in the mix there. So I'm still driving the 8-seater.
But you don't have to get up and fix breakfast on Saturday mornings, right?
Depends on
You're
the
not
day.
fixing diaper bags. You don't have to get diaper bags ready before you leave the house.
That is true. No, evolution for sure. But I think about what I went through as a student when they were 3 years old and 1.5 and 2 at the time. So thinking back to that part of our lives when we were juggling school and young kids, thinking about all the other PAs that are out there, just starting their PA careers or still in school. Do you feel like you would have advice to them? Because I know what a struggle it was for me, and I would grasp on to any other PA mom I knew that was in those shoes at the time.
I would definitely say support, having a support network. Our children weren't that young when I was in PE school, but I remember when my husband and I were both getting our masters and our kids were a lot younger at the time. I think we only had 2. It was advantageous that we still lived in Charleston. We had so much family. We had about 4 different people that we could call on that could either come to our house or we could drop the kids off. He got out of class before me, then he would pick them up. We relied on our family and friends network. I couldn't imagine if we had moved away and didn't have that, we would not have been able to do it. When I was in PE school, this is when Google Docs first started coming out. My husband works in IT. And I remember he said, just because I was like, I just don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time to go to the grocery store. Just type everything in it and I can see it. Don't worry about it. I got it. So he pretty much took every responsibility off the plate so I could focus on school. Now, a lot of people use their laundry services, grocery. Back then, there was no Instacart, things like that.
Yeah.
But I would encourage people to look and see because what's a well-oiled machine in regular life, it's probably going to feel like an assembly line is completely broken if you're in school and you're trying to manage being a full-time student as well as being a mom. So you may have to figure out new ways and ask for help. They profile us in terms of PA students. They'll say, oh, it's high achievers, a type A personality. There's a lot of proud people too. And that's served us well. That's why we've gotten to where we've gotten. But you have to learn to ask for help too. I was one of those people. I'm not going to ask for help because there's going to be a time when I really need it. And when I do, I'm going to ask for it then. But I'm just going to push through this and plow through it.
Yeah. I think knowing that we're more powerful in numbers than doing it alone. In reality, the best that we can be is if we have social support, if we recognize when we need help and be okay with that. And I think that takes a lot of grace and wisdom. But also, as we evolve in these generations, we have Google Docs, ChatGPT, our phones, texting, and notepads, being able to use that with our families, like our husbands, support system, and our kids. I use the calendars with my kids. My question was going to go back to your journaling. I noticed that you journal. How do you use journaling as a way to self-reflect? I want to journal, and I do have a journal book, but it tends to be a to-do list at the end of the day.
Yeah.
How do you manage it?
So I have multiple journals for different things. I have a journal that has an ongoing to-do list where I can take things off and then add things. I consider that journaling. And then I have the random thought, just like sometimes I'm driving and I'll be like, I think in pictures. And so I'm like, oh, I got to get this down. So I have a Google Doc and I have one for each year. So this one is simply 2025. And so I talk text into it. So if I ever wanted to transcribe it, it would have to go through a grammar check because I know what it means, but I'm talk texting just to get the raw thoughts out. So I have that kind of journal. Then I have more business journal where if I'm meeting with one of my mentors, that's the one that I pull out. But I do looking at journals because what I found, and I actually did this long ago, the core of who I am, like my desires, hasn't really changed. When I went back and looked at stuff I had written even before we started having children, what I wanted in life was still the same. And I think for most people, it's the same, but it's just expressed differently. You want peace. You want to have a life of joy. You want somebody to share it with, love. You want to give. You're trying to figure out like, how do you give back and make the world a better place? I think it's good because for me, journaling lets me connect the dots in my own life. If we had a conversation for 15 minutes and you just told me about different things in your life, I can connect things that maybe you didn't even see, but it's not as easy for me to see it for myself when I go back and read it like a story. I'm like, so
I love
I
that.
absolutely love journaling. And it's also good. Like I talked about like moving, kind of like getting energy out. I think it's good to get thoughts out as well to create more mental and emotional real estate instead of just carrying so much in our minds.
Yeah.
And I have
No,
a
I love
spiritual
that.
journal too, where if there's a scripture or a sermon, and then I have some different things.
I just want to say, because there's a statement I always say to my patients, we're at this chapter of your life. Let's reflect on the past, but let's focus on carving this chapter of what you want. It's like connecting the dots and seeing the course of your story. I love that.
Do you have any specific go-to CME or textbooks or other books that you really go back to and enjoy for training?
I use Medscape a lot. I thought that was going to be something that I used mostly while I was a student or a new PA, but I still use that a lot. And believe it or not, I utilize our groups too. I forgot to mention that when we were talking about new PAs, get connected with some of the groups like our psych PA group. So I go in there and I do a search, and chances are there's somebody who's brought up a question or made some comments about that. And then as far as like particular journal, I don't read journals as much as I used to. I used to get the journals in the mail, which I'm not good with. To sit down and read it was like, okay, I'm gonna read this one article. I'd rather listen. I don't have any specifics, like any go-tos. It's almost like topical. So what I need at that time, and then I'll research for it at that moment.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I love it. And I think going back to our community that we've been creating in the psychiatry PA world is like getting to know how people practice clinically in real life. It's great to do the Medscape and the review, but also how do we translate that into practice? I love the white space. I love your journaling. I love the kind of giving yourself grace and opportunity to learn and always learn. With that mindset, you keep on just breaking barriers, not only as a speaker, but also as a psych PA, now as a mentor, now as a strategist of Kenya and beyond. I just want to say thank you so much for being with us and sharing your story, because I think that listening to other Psych PA stories will help others continue to break barriers. I think that we should never underestimate what we're capable of. We are so capable. And if we can just be surrounded by individuals that are inspiring like you, we're going to continue to see PAs making havoc in a positive way. So thank you so much, Yolanda.
This was fun. I enjoy being here. I never get tired of talking. It's really like if you're telling your story, it's just me telling my story, and it just happens to be that I have a lot to say, but it's always fun to be able to share. A lot of times it's what I've heard other people do, or I've seen other people break barriers. And I'm like, if they can do it, it may not be that exact thing that I want to do, but if they can have this type of leap in their life, it can happen for me as well. I usually go in with blinders once I want to do something. I have blinders on, and I don't see why it can't
I
be
love
done.
it. Love it.
I want to say, I wish you were on my playground when I was back in school.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
Stronger together. And it's just so good to find like all types of personalities in the Psych PA world. Thank you so much, Yolanda.
you're welcome.
Can we share your social media handles? Any ways that PAs that want to contact you or get mentorship or coaching, what would you like to share? You can
Reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's Dr. Sherlonda Adkins, and my last name is spelled Adkins. A lot of people put T in there, but it's Adkins. So on LinkedIn, also Facebook, and I have a website too, which is drsherlondaadkins.com. Yeah, just reach out and we can have a conversation.
Thank you so much. All right, that's a wrap.